That's right, you're watching Africa Pulse. It's Business Day TV's newest show. Each week in this time slot, we'll be bringing you an in-depth look at some of the most important themes on the continent by hosting interviews with key decision makers. This will put us in conversation with leaders in both business and government. We'll also be looking at Africa's success stories, and this will take us to all sorts of places, from farmlands in South Africa to Namibia's growing oil and gas sector. And we're excited to have you along for the ride. So let's jump in. This is Africa Pulse. I'm Bronwyn Seaborn, and today we discuss Africa's potential. Africa is one of the world's fastest growing consumer markets and is projected to boast 1.7 billion consumers by 2030. For companies that are consumer driven, this is an attractive prospect, but not without its challenges. So let's look at this through the lens of vehicle manufacturing, specifically for Volkswagen and its plans to capitalize on Africa's potential. For that discussion, I'm joined by Martina Biene, Chairperson and Managing Director of Volkswagen Group Africa. Martina, thanks so much for joining us today.
Good afternoon, and yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, you've been quoted as saying, "Africa is my focus now." And the simple question is, why?
There's so many reasons to it, multiple reasons to it. So first of all, in automotive, we call Africa the last frontier. So there is a huge population, and population still is growing. I mean, we've reached the level of India already now, but the projection is growing even further. The GDP is also growing, is projected to grow in Africa, and there is not a big new car market currently. So there is need for mobility, huge need for mobility, but like untapped potential, as we say. So first of all, the projection of Africa is great. Then we'll have the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which creates the biggest free trade zone on the continent, and which is, again, I think, helping to fully leverage that potential. In some time, 54 countries in Africa have signed that agreement, so there is unity on, yes, we want to become this free trade zone. And on the other hand, also we, and that applies to Volkswagen as a European or as a German manufacturer, the switch to electric vehicles in Europe does not really benefit us because the African market and also the South African market is not ready currently for a huge amount of electric vehicles. So us producing electric vehicles for Europe is not an option currently, because we also need to have a strong stance in the domestic market or in the domestic region, if I can put it like that. But also Europe is not looking at us to export further in the future to that extent, because of long logistics chain, adding CO2 in the logistics chain, and also having enough plants in Europe for the electric vehicles. So opportunity, but also we'll have to look elsewhere.
So given all of that you then outlined there, Martina, we had African ministers agree last year on a continental automotive manufacturing strategy. That's to create the conditions for this pan-African motor industry. What exactly would that mean for Volkswagen?
So the automotive is one of the 4 key pillars of that African Continental Free Trade Agreement. But of course, for every industry, you need to have specific regulations in place, how you're going to do that. And also for automotive, the regulation is still outstanding to be fully signed on the rules of origin. So there is still negotiations going on to what extent local content is required to benefit from that free trade agreement. So as high as possible, of course, but also as low as making it happen in Africa anytime soon. So there's probably a lot of technology which can't be localized immediately. Let's see. What we do, and not only as Volkswagen, but I'm also president of AAAM, African Association of Automotive Manufacturers, is that we go in discussions with countries in terms of their automotive policy and what role these countries could play if we map out the automotive master plan for Africa. Because not all of the countries will be able to manufacture, or will, even if they are able, will have a plant. Volkswagen will not build, for example, 54 plants in every country. So it's always about what can this country do? Probably one is a passenger car manufacturer, the other country has a focus on light commercial vehicles, then there is component manufacturing, then there's raw material beneficiation. So to map out that there is space for as many countries as possible in the automotive value chain, that's what we are currently doing also with the AAAM to really make it exciting and make it beneficial for all countries.
Exciting, but it's definitely not going to happen overnight. What timeline do you envision for such a policy maneuvering to really take effect?
It started now. There is countries already moving fast in terms of automotive policy, in terms of bilateral trade agreements or regional trade agreements in that specific areas. So, for example, Ghana is moving fast. Egypt is moving fast. Morocco is moving fast. Senegal, Ivory Coast. South Africa has a good automotive policy already for years. So, and this is how it starts. It will be in full shape probably in 10 to 15 years' time, but it definitely starts now, and I feel it's starting with quite high speed. So very pleased on what goes on that bilateral or regional level already now.
It is a long period to get the wheels turning, if we can put it that way, on such a major development across the continent. And one challenge to that is the need to up new vehicle sales in Africa, because at the moment, most countries do allow used cars from across the globe to enter their markets. You did highlight that at the top as well, and that to an extent dimming the appeal of more expensive new cars. How do you turn the tide on a situation like this? Because that in itself is also a major undertaking.
Yeah, you're right. Specifically in the sub-Saharan African region, the focus is on really growing of new car demand. So, and there's multiple avenues to it. One is, of course, in a staggered approach, ban that the used car importing. Because what you at the very end want to create is an own used car market. So at the very end, you want to create an African used car market with new cars produced in Africa, then becoming used cars. So it's not that this market goes away. It just kind of gets another source over time, if I can put it like that. So that the negotiations we'll have with countries on that is a staggered approach of banning used cars if you want to industrialize and not play the role as a used car trader only, which is of course also an option, but you create more jobs in industrialization. And another thing is, of course, also with banking partners to look into vehicle asset financing to support affordability. A third avenue which we are just exploring is it's not only selling new cars, but it's, for example, also mobility. So in Rwanda, we run our Volkswagen mobility solution. So if Volkswagen becomes affordable with a ride and not only with the sales of a car. So to provide mobility concepts to the regions. So that's multiple avenues we're exploring, because we know that, of course, at the very end, we all have to make sure that the cars are affordable and can be bought by the population.
As you look towards Africa and all this potential that we're speaking about, South Africa seems to become crucial. It is your Africa home base, if we want to call it that, and you do have established operations here. And in acknowledgement of that, you've committed a 4 billion rand to your Kariga plant in South Africa's Eastern Cape. What does that investment get you exactly?
So that gets for us a third product integrated in the current facilities in Kariga, and will secure, of course, the 3,900 jobs we do have in Kariga or in South Africa, including our sales organization in Joburg. It is a product, it's a small SUV based on the current Polo platform, because we could not integrate a third platform or a third model without using the same platform in our plant. So that means a lot of engineering, which is also done here. That means new robots in the body shop. That means new tools. That means new skills in the other shops. And what we are so it's in collaboration with Brazil, and Brazil also gets that model produced then in Brazil. It is Brazil and Latin America is left-hand drive only, so we need to do the right-hand drive development, which is quite cool because we want to position ourselves also as the right-hand drive hub in the Volkswagen world, potentially in the future. And it's this for us, the first car, which is really an African car. So we Africanized the Brazilian version, and this will be then sold across the entire continent from the home base of Volkswagen in Africa, which is Carina.
So that investment supporting your African growth ambitions, but it doesn't come without its challenges. Top of mind really being power supply here in South Africa, with load shedding front and center. That really happening quite frequently, and even towards the end of last year, sparking rumors that VW could disinvest as a result. So lay it out for us, just how much impact does load shedding or power cuts have on your operations?
So we are celebrating 75th anniversary in 2026, and I want to stay then another 75 years minimum. So we are not disinvesting, but the challenges which were mentioned last year, end of last year, remain. And we would very much appreciate that, although we have done this investment announcement, now South Africa would attend our challenges and help us in overcoming these challenges. Mainly the Nelson Mandela Bay, where we are based and where Isuzu is based, is not exempted from load shedding in the automotive industry, where as other manufacturers are exempted. So we are put in an uncompetitive situation, even within South Africa. From level 5, stage 5 load shedding, we'll have to close the plant. So 1 to 4, we are not affected. Stage 5, we'll have to close the plant. 1 day in 8 days. Stage 6 is 2 days in 8 days. We've got a schedule developed with the chamber, which helps and is better than ramping down for 2 hours a day or for 3 hours a day. Yeah, it's quite an uncompetitive situation. It was not really easy to convince the headquarter to help us with this 4 billion rand investment, given the situation on not stable power supply. Because we want to hit a record production volume already this year, and we are also the sole manufacturer for Polo now in the world. We have taken another investment, which is 130 million rand for generators. So in case of load shedding, we are now able to run our plant for 130 million rand, burning diesel for a day for around 1.6 million rand, which is, as I said, doesn't really help our competitiveness, not amongst the other competitors in the country, but also does not help the story to tell in headquarters, which is probably the more difficult one when you fight for investments.
Given this, do you feel that government is sympathetic to this? Have they been in conversation with you? Is there, on your side at least, a real feeling that from a state perspective, they are looking to address this?
No, the sympathy is great. So we had multiple conversations. Unfortunately, nothing has changed so far. So it's not a lack of conversations. For me, it's a lack of action now, and what comes out of that. Yeah, that would be my expectation also to government and municipality. Although we have now made this investment announcement, to not lay back and relax and think everything is safe now with VW, but rather now attend the challenges that we even further future-proof the automotive industry in South Africa and our company here.
Absolutely. On the note of electricity, though, it's been stated that Carina will not be building electric vehicles. Why have you taken that stance? Because it comes as South Africa has announced tax breaks that are supposed to actually encourage EV production.
Yeah, EV production is encouraged, that is right, and that is also based on a lot of input the automotive industry has given via NAMSA also to the government. And EV production is encouraged. EV sales, unfortunately, in the country is not encouraged at all. And as I said, so I won't need an electric vehicle, and our business model is then probably different to other manufacturers also to export to Europe, because Europe has enough plants, talking Volkswagen, has enough plants where they can produce their electric vehicles needed for Europe. So if I would go electric, I would need an African market and African demand for that. And that is currently in South Africa not supported by politics and policies as well. The annual number is a low 4-digit number. I think 1,000-something electric vehicles, battery electric vehicles have been sold last year, which is not sustainable at all for manufacturing. There is African countries now moving faster with automotive policies or electric vehicle policies, which is good. But it would anyway in every country all start with encouraging imports first to grow the demand, to grow the market, to help up setting up a charging infrastructure, to make it meaningful for somebody to set up charging infrastructure, because you can have nice chargers, but if nobody charges, what's the point of having them? So it always goes via import then to one day manufacturing, but I don't see that anytime soon in South Africa.
Just as we end off, Martina, you talk about the hard sell that has to be done to head office, about being in South Africa. And, when you talk about EVs and that Africa, to a large extent, is still a combustion engine market. What is then driving the decision-making behind staying in South Africa and staying in Africa? Is it just purely that there is potential here and therefore there will still be money put behind growth plans here on the continent? Or does it run deeper than that? Is it a wait-and-see kind of situation? Let's put a little bit of money, let's see how it all develops. What's behind the group still willing to get behind Africa, given that it is such a hard sell right now?
So no, we managed to, first of all, sell South Africa as an automotive destination very well. So the South African market is a good market. Of course, we would appreciate if it grows and gets back to pre-COVID levels and then even beyond, because there is huge potential in the South African market per se. But what I think the most convincing point was really to show that potential coming up now in Africa on top of the South African potential which is there, and for Volkswagen to be a bit at the forefront together with the other manufacturers now buying in and not waiting until the lay of the land is clear. So it is really based on a strong Africa strategy which we have put together.
Martina, let's leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us here. Martina Biene is the Chairperson and Managing Director of Volkswagen Group Africa, and that's where we leave things for now. But join us same time, same place next week for more insights into what's playing out in Africa. From me, Bronwyn Seaborn, and the rest of the team, it's goodbye for now.